Partisan redistricting, or gerrymandering, is about fractions, percentages. These coins represent voters in an evenly divided state, 50 dimes, 50 pennies. These 100 coins elect 10 representatives. That means each voting district must contain 10 coins. Now, real people don't live in neat rows, so let's mix them up. Okay, this is our hypothetical evenly divided state. Let's see what happens if the dimes draw the maps. 10 coins in each district. For the dimes, first thing we do is pack the pennies. Give them 2 safe districts, but pack them solid. The remaining 8 districts are won by the dimes, by smaller but still comfortable margins. The dimes win 8 districts, and the pennies win 2. The dimes overwhelmingly control the legislature. Of course, if the pennies drew the district lines, the opposite would be true. Let's rig it for the pennies. For the pennies, we follow the same pack and crack strategy. Pack the dimes into 2 safe districts and crack the remaining 8 districts to win by the same margin, 8-2. Well, now that we've destroyed democracy, let's consider what this map would look like if the districts were drawn for compactness and keeping communities of interest together. You get evenly divided districts in an evenly divided state. Some go heavily dime, some go penny, but that's to be expected. People live where they live, and that is what democracy is about. It's not about party bosses rigging election districts so they can fix the election results. A little exposition. Gerrymander reform activists in Pennsylvania pursued 4 different approaches to partisan redistricting. A federal lawsuit based on the United States Constitution, a state court lawsuit based on the Pennsylvania State Constitution, traditional lobbying and consensus building for legislative reform, and civil disobedience.
If citizens cannot participate in the vote, then we do not have a democracy. So this is a deep philosophical intention that there will be people who will not access their citizenship. And be clear, these are not injustices that only harm minority people. These are universal injustices.
Well, I've been aware of gerrymandering as a problem in our democracy for some time, but I'm just going to say I'm an American. And America gave the Western world democracy, and to most Americans it's very important to us. And when you realize that your democracy has been stolen from you, it really makes you angry.
Yeah, my name's Monica von Dobenek. I live in South Londonderry Township in Lebanon County. I'm here because I think, one person, one vote is the basis of our whole system of government, and it has been horribly twisted through this gerrymandering where our representatives pick their voters rather than the other way around. I think anybody who looks at the maps can see how egregious it has become.
Reading, Pennsylvania is one of the most unequally funded school systems in the country. And it is that way because there is nobody actually representing Reading, Pennsylvania. Reading has been divided into separate districts. Each of those districts combines a piece of Reading with the suburbs and then the rural area. So what you end up having is 4 representatives, none of whom actually live in Reading. So Reading ends up getting the short end of the stick in almost everything. In our lobbying work, I have heard so many stories about how gerrymandering is used as a weapon by party leadership. And if you do not vote the way that they tell you to vote, they will redraw your district. It's happened. Everybody in that building has about 5 stories about somebody who that happened to.
We, in the General Assembly, get the honor once every decade to cast a vote on congressional redistricting.
So this process has been a very public process, a very open process, and one in which our doors have been open to receive input throughout the year. And the end product that we were shooting for, and that is to have a map that would ultimately be constitutional, legal, and fair, and I believe that's what we've produced here today.
This is how the bill originally was introduced in the legislature in September of 2011. It just says the first district is composed of a portion of this Commonwealth. The second district is composed of a portion of this Commonwealth. They inserted the language at the last day. Here's what the actual final bill looks like. It's just page after page of lists of counties and wards and divisions.
The actual language of the districts was not dropped in until 9 in the morning, so the congressional redistricting plan was available for the legislators to see, for the press to see, for the people of Pennsylvania to see for only 14 hours before it came up for a final vote in the state Senate.
And I think this plan clearly meets constitutional and statutory obligations to reflect one person, one vote.
If you ask the Republican leadership, have they complied with one person, one vote, they insist that they have. What would you say to that point of view?
I would say they're wrong. And I think anybody who looks at the map, that they devised could see that. There are places where the maps are like one house wide.
Most famous of that is the 7th Congressional District, the Goofy Kicking Donald Duck District. Just to highlight some of the absurdities in that, it has these big areas that are connected by these tiny, narrow isthmuses, and one of them is a place called Creed's Seafood and Steaks. So the 7th District basically includes just that building and its parking lot.
This map is absolutely one person, one vote. 705,687 in 5 districts and 705,688 in 13 districts.
We have 18 congressional districts, and the map is drawn in such a way that 13 out of the 18 are held by Republican members of Congress, no matter what the election looks like statewide. So there are 5 districts that are held by Democrats, and as you'll see, the Democrats win these districts by big margins, 85%, 91%. So the 2nd Congressional District, Congressman Evans' district, is regularly won by something like a 90-10 margin by Democrats because they've been designed to be so clustered into that district. The other 13 districts are won by comfortable but much smaller margins by Republican candidates, 57%, 63%. Statewide in 2012, the Democrats won an average of 77% of the votes in the districts they won, and the Republicans won an average of 59% in the districts they won. And that's really the math, like the nitty-gritty of how this works. Statewide vote share, Democrats got 50.8% of the votes statewide in congressional races in 2012, 50.8% of the votes, but they only got 5 out of 18 seats, which I think is about 28% of the seats in our congressional delegation.
Hi, I'm Susan Carty, and I'm the president of the League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania. And we're here today in the Capitol, where we just had a rousing rally to kick off our lawsuit with regard to the redistricting problem in Pennsylvania.
So this is a lawsuit brought on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania and 18 individual voters, and it challenges Pennsylvania's congressional plan, our map for congressional districts, under the Pennsylvania Constitution. Pennsylvania has 18 congressional districts, and it's a very closely divided state on partisan lines. So you might expect that our congressional delegation would have, say, 9 Democrats and 9 Republicans, or maybe 10 and 8, but that's never how it works. The plan was engineered so that 13 Republicans would always win. So one example of this is Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, which is part of the western suburbs of Philadelphia. It has about 800,000 people, which is to say it has about the right number of people to have one member of Congress representing Montgomery County. Instead, the maps were drawn in such a way that Montgomery County is divided among 5 different congressional districts, and not one of those 5 representatives lives in Montgomery County. So it's the 3rd biggest county in Pennsylvania. It has its own distinct political needs and wishes, yet it is pretty much not represented at all in Congress the way this map has been drawn.
We are suing under the Pennsylvania Constitution, saying that the current maps violate free expression and association claims. They violate the equal protection guarantees under the Pennsylvania Constitution and the free and equal clause under the Pennsylvania Constitution.
Do you solemnly swear that you will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this Commonwealth?
And the Constitution of this Commonwealth.
If so, say, I do.
When elected officials are sworn in, they swear to uphold the state constitution. Just look at what they are doing. Do they follow what the Constitution requires, which is that they are compact and contiguous? And our argument would be that they absolutely do not.
My name is Mimi McKenzie. I'm the legal director for the Public Interest Law Center. So today we urge the Pennsylvania Supreme Court to uphold and protect the freedoms in our state constitution and return elections to the people. I want to introduce our co-counsel from Arnold and Porter Case Schuler, David Gersh.
I would say if there was a highlight for today, it really had to do with the questioning of the other side's lawyers. There came a moment in response to questioning from the justices when Speaker Turzai's lawyer came out and admitted that, in fact, this was a purely political exercise, that they knew how to identify the Democratic voters, that they did it, and the map was drawn based on that fact. And they made the claim, they took the position that there should be no limits whatsoever on how partisan the districts could be.
We're not the only state where this is going on. Manipulated maps are under siege around the country, as they should be. Pennsylvania voters are leading the charge to ensure that our democracy is one where voters are represented, not politicians. We were in Pennsylvania Supreme Court today urging the court to strike down the 2011 plan and to order a remedy that will replace it with a constitutional map in time for the primary later this year.
In the day's other news, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court threw out the state's congressional map. It ruled that districts had been so heavily gerrymandered to benefit Republicans that it violated the state's constitution. The court gave the Republican-led legislature until February 9th to fashion a replacement. But GOP leaders said that they would appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court.
The drawing of congressional lines, that's in the federal constitution. We do not believe that the state Supreme Court had the power, based on the state constitution, to invalidate the congressional map. We think it was a completely partisan, ultimate gerrymander.
We took a somewhat different approach from many of the other lawsuits going on around the country by filing our case in state court, raising claims exclusively under our state's constitution. Interestingly, the U.S. Constitution nowhere expressly says that individuals have a right to vote. Pennsylvania's constitution, like most state constitutions, though, does have an express right to vote, and our state Supreme Court has been jealous about guarding the prerogative of our state constitution to extend greater protections for individual rights than the U.S. Constitution does.
We're filing at the United States Supreme Court first, and that will be both the Republican Senate leadership and the House Republican leadership, and we are hoping that the United States Supreme Court will stay it.
This is going to be a new filing from you guys, or you somehow,
So the question is whether this case could go to the U.S. Supreme Court. Stanton, you want to address that?
We've asked the Pennsylvania Supreme Court to rule not only that the map violates the Pennsylvania Constitution, but that the map violates the Pennsylvania Constitution irrespective of federal law. And in those circumstances, U.S. Supreme Court review is unavailable.
We think it was a completely partisan, ultimate gerrymander, a 5-2 Democratic justice to 2 Republican justice decision to invalidate the congressional map. This after the fact that 3 straight elections were run with this congressional map.
Why did it take from 2011 to 2016 to bring this case?
By filing when we did, there were already 3 congressional elections that had taken place under this map. So we didn't have to ask the court to hypothesize or prognosticate. We were able to show the court the empirical reality that this map always would produce a 13-5 outcome, even when Democrats won a majority of the votes in House races statewide.
This was and is a usurpation of democracy that is put in the hands of legislators.
Would you be okay with the court's decision if they had ruled the map unconstitutional but given you more time, say?
No.
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 Can you go into that a little bit?
Yes, because they don't have the power to do that. This is nothing short of alarming. This is really inappropriate. The United States Supreme Court is the court, in terms of gravitas, to address this usurpation of democratic power.
I think it's really important for everyone to understand there is no constitutional right to an unconstitutional map. And so let's make no mistake, they're benefiting from the way the lines they're drawn right now, but there's no right to hold on to a map that's unconstitutional.
So before we move on, there's a couple of things I think should be mentioned. There are congressional district maps, there are House representative maps, and there are state Senate maps. So there's 3 sets of maps. The other issue is that in January 2018, the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court ruled the congressional district maps an illegal gerrymander and ruled that new maps had to be drawn immediately. But those maps are only congressional maps. They did not order new maps for state senators or state representatives. The third issue is the difference between a lawsuit and legislative reform.
Our bill is about the future. Our bill is about what's going to happen in 2021, 2031, 2041, and beyond. The court case was only dealing with the congressional districts. It did not alter the state house or state senate districts that we've had since 2011. And secondly, it changed the congressional map, but it did not change the process that we use to draw those maps. And our effort, with broad bipartisan support, is to change that so that an independent citizens commission is in charge of redistricting the next time around and for decades thereafter.
Signs! Grab signs! It's not windy out today. Lots of signs. Money ain't speech. Corporations are people. March on Harrisburg. Stand up. Stand up. March on Harrisburg. Stand up. Stand up. One person, one vote. One person, one vote. One person, one vote. One person, one vote. We are marching to end Pennsylvania corruption and restore democracy in our Commonwealth.
Yeah, last time.
Okay, awesome.
We're marching to get our elected representatives to do the right thing.
Since last January, we've been lobbying at the Capitol, trying to get 2 major pieces of good government reform passed that would end gerrymandering and end legalized bribery in our state government.
We are planning on doing some creative acts of nonviolent civil disobedience inside the state capitol. Thank you!
Thank you! Yes, you are, sir. Please back off. You can go around another way. You're assaulting other people. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Your hands are on another person.
I'd like to get through here.
No, sir.
Speak to Chairman Metcalf about this. The business in this building is not the business of the people. It is the business of the special interests, of the party bosses, of those who would rather suppress the vote than engage with constituents. So, we do believe that sometimes to save the republic, to save the law, you have to break the law through nonviolence. Push me. Thank you for
Thank you for sitting in. Your sacrifice will help us win. Thank you for sitting in. Your sacrifice will help us win. Thank you for sitting in. Your sacrifice will help us win. Thank you for sitting in. Your sacrifice will help us win. Thank you for sitting in. Your sacrifice will help us win. Thank you for sitting in. Your sacrifice. When our democracy is under attack, what do we do? Stand up like that. What do we do? Stand up like that. What do we do? Stand up like that.
I'm from York, Pennsylvania, and it was scary. I'm an old lady. And the police were nice to us. That's good.
My name is Brian Gordon, and I was third chair on the Ager legal team, and that was the federal case that was trying to undo the Pennsylvania map using the Elections Clause of the U.S. Constitution. In the course of the Ager case, as a result of brilliant legal work by Lisa Mathewson, the legislative defendants, Turzai and Scarnati, finally turned over the data.
What was the data? What did you see?
The outlines of regions on the map, counties in Pennsylvania, municipalities, cities, towns, townships, boroughs, voter registration, how many people registered as Democrats, how many registered as Republicans. So they collected massive volumes of partisan information, broke it down all the way to the census block level, and used that data to carefully draw these intricate, filigreed little ear outlines in this area in such a way that this district perfectly kept all these blue areas out of this district to make a district that would be robust, even in a very strongly Democratic year like 2008. This is a map of the southwestern corner of the state, centered on Pittsburgh right here, this nice little dark blob.
And the title of this is CD 18, Congressional District 18 Maximized.
Exactly. So that title really caught my attention, and not only the title, but also the little data table up here in the upper left corner, which is a listing of the partisan lean of each of the Pennsylvania's 18 new congressional districts in the version that was associated with this proposed map. You can see, District 1 is a Democratic-leaning district, and it's Democratic-leaning by 28.8 percentage points, just an overwhelming landslide. And District 14 is listed as D15.2, still a very heavily Democratic district. But what they've done is they've taken District 18, a proposed design for District 18, and wrapped it very carefully around Pittsburgh here in such a way as to maximize, which is CD18 maximized, the Republican advantage in that district. I can tell you why they didn't use this particular proposed map, though. If you look at this proposed map, Congressional District 18 has a leaning of R+9 here, which is pretty good. But District 4, unfortunately, has been given a lot of Democrats to keep them out of CD18 to maximize it. And so District 4 is a very balanced district. It's listed as R0, and so that would be a very sort of toss-up district. And if you're gerrymandering, you don't want to make a toss-up district. You want to maybe give that CD4 a few of those Republicans from CD18 and make them both maybe R4.5 or so.
But regardless, the information in the upper left-hand corner of the screen demonstrates that they were calculating specifically on partisan leans of Republican or Democrat.
Right, and many of the maps were labeled in something like this way. They had partisan lean information shown on them. They had maps that were labeled things like Meehan proposed map. They had a Congressman Pitts proposed map. And so they had all these maps that looked like they were actually influenced by, at least by the labeling, were influenced by the desires of the congresspeople who would be expected to be representing those districts. Interestingly, none of the proposed map designs that I saw in all of these 200 pages of legislative communications they disclosed to us, none of them had anything other than partisan statistics on them. There was nothing about Voting Rights Act compliance. There was nothing about population equality even. There was no information about anything other than partisan leans of districts.
Let me officially welcome folks here at the Church of the Good Samaritan. We're thrilled to be hosting this event. With that, I'm going to hand the mic over to Dr. Carol Cunningham.
Think about the way lines are drawn. So this is a kind of classic example
If you look at the one on the left, you could have a population that's 60% blue, 40% red. If blue controlled the line drawing process, though, blue could take all those districts simply by drawing the lines. You see that in the third one over? If red somehow had gotten control of drawing the lines, even though they're the minority with 40%, if they drew the lines well, they could end up with a majority of legislators. See that? That's gerrymandering. Now, the thing I don't like about that is it assumes that the whole game is between two parties. And that's what matters, which party wins. And we hear it from a lot of people, oh, you're just trying to flip things because right now the Republicans are in control in Pennsylvania and you want the Democrats to be in control. That is completely not the case. It's about people. What we're trying to say is elections should be about people. They should not be about parties. They should be about people. Now, imagine you had a population like that was kind of heavily red and blue, but had some other folks mixed in, and you drew the lines the way they're drawn there. Who would your candidates be speaking to when they ran for election? They'd be speaking to everybody. You would have to build some kind of confidence with a majority of voters. You could not just appeal to the far edges of either red or blue. You'd have to appeal to the middle to be elected. Now, you could take that same population and draw the lines differently. A sweetheart gerrymander is one where both parties collude to create safe districts for themselves and really shut out the voter's voice. So if you look at the top and the bottom districts there, those are safe districts. So the party could just say, here's your candidate, and you don't really get a choice. Now in this, because I'm not a particularly good gerrymanderer, the middle district there is a swing district. You'd still have a district where people have to appeal to the voter. Our parties have managed to draw those off the map. We have very few swing areas anywhere, either in Congress or our state legislature any longer, because the maps are drawn so carefully. This is a picture of Allentown. That's another city that ties with Reading as being one of the most underfunded school districts in the country. So Allentown is divided into 3 House districts. It ought to have somebody who is thinking only about Allentown. Instead, it's a piece, and the least important piece of 3 districts. I could go on a long time to tell you the ways that this impacts policy. I'll give you one more specific example and then a kind of general point about this. Lead poisoning. We've all heard about Flint, Michigan and the lead poisoning in the water. I don't know if you know, but there are 18 cities in Pennsylvania that have far worse lead poisoning than Flint, Michigan. Because these are cities with older housing and older buildings, and they're all painted with lead paint, and every time you open a window or a door, there's lead dispersed into the air. But for comparison, the lead exposure rate in Flint is 3.21%, which is toxic to children especially. In York, it's 12.41, Lebanon, it's 12.91. If you could see this well, you'd see that all of these cities have at least 4 times the level of lead exposure that Flint does. And you would think a state where this has turned out to be a serious problem would immediately the legislature would say, we need to do mandatory testing of children at these ages so we can catch this early and make sure it's remediated. Pennsylvania has not done that.
I'm from Monroe County.
I'm from North Catasauqua.
And I'm from Coopersburg, Pennsylvania.
I'm on the bus because I'm tired of my state representatives and my state senators being held accountable to their party leaders as opposed to the citizens of Pennsylvania.
Fair Districts PA from Berks County. We're going to Representative Turzai, the Speaker of the House. We're going to his office. Any future redistricting bills need to go to another committee other than the House Government Committee, where they will be stopped or eviscerated.
I would really like to have further discussion with both of them. Okay.
Same thing. Mrs. Barry and Mrs. Jerry.
Well, okay, Barry and Jerry.
This meeting of the House State Government Committee is called to order. We've had a lot of lobbying of my office, of my colleagues. House Bill 722 sets up an unaccountable commission of citizens not elected by their fellow citizens, but ultimately appointed And I think the best way to make sure we have a citizens actually being the ones redrawing, citizens who are held accountable to their fellow citizens who elect them to office, is to totally gut and replace this bill with the amendment that is now before us. I think if you truly want this done by the citizens, then I think the best way is to make sure those citizens are elected, not appointed.
This process is broken. If you need any greater testament, look at what will happen by 11 a.m. today.
Chairman Metcalf.
Yes.
Representatives Barrar.
Proxy, yes.
Dush. Mr. Chairman, the amendment passes 15-11.
Thank you, Representative Hill. The bill is amended. We'll go over for the day. Motion adjourned by...
The people have the right to alter and reform. The people have the right to alter and reform. The people have the right to alter and reform. The people have the right to alter and reform. Our Pennsylvania Constitution says that, promises that, and yet that right has been denied us here in this House again and again and again. Gerrymandering undermines accountable government, and we are gathered here to make clear that that must change.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Eric Rowe, and I'm the proud Republican prime sponsor of House Bill 722. Democracy is a fragile thing, and it must be protected. And in the words of President Ronald Reagan, here it goes. He said, "Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction." Ladies and gentlemen, just like freedom, democracy is a fragile thing, and it must be fought for and protected, and that is what we're going to do with an independent redistricting commission.
I have never in my life seen democracy at work like it is here today, and I cannot be prouder. And I cannot be prouder to be a part of it, and I'm a Republican. And I cannot be prouder of the fact that little rural Clinton County, of a population of less than 40,000, got this right by having all 29 of our municipalities sign a resolution to support fair districts.
We know who we work for in Clinton County, don't we, guys? We know that we work for the people who put us in office. I am Pete Smeltz. I am a Republican. We have two Republicans in Clinton County that supported this. And we were challenged at times by our Republican counterparts who are suspicious of this movement. This movement is what America is all about. This movement is what it's about. This is what our Constitution is about. These people in these halls work for us.
On June 25th, 2018, the Gerrymander Reform Bill, SB 22, finally came to the floor of the Pennsylvania House.
The Sergeant at Arms will open the doors of the House. We have some amendments in front of us. The amendment passes. The amendment passes.
There's quite a few amendments there. Could we take mine one at a time?
All those in favor of the amendment will vote aye. Those opposed, nay. Members will proceed to vote.
By the end of the day, more than 500 amendments were piled on top of the bill by both Democratic and Republican legislators.
So we are not adjourned at this time, but we will be back in session at 1 p.m.
The next day, the House reconvened but did not take up SB 22.
At this time, the House is going to stand in recess until call of the chair. We are not going to be announcing a specific return date. There are no further votes. However, I would like to just make a couple of announcements, please.
When the House abruptly ended session on June 26th, the legislature once again blocked gerrymander reform for the State House, State Senate, and congressional delegation. But despite their inaction, the state Supreme Court decision took effect.
This is the new Pennsylvania map that was drawn after the Supreme Court ruled the prior map to be unconstitutional. It looks like Montgomery County is pretty much intact. You know, and there may be some parts of Montgomery County that fall into a different district. It looks like up here it does. Berks County, where I live, is this right here. I am still within the 6th congressional district, but there's a major change to this map that I'm happy for. I'm actually in the same congressional district as the city of Reading. If you look at the old map, you can see the district that I live in stretches from Chester County up through Montgomery County, all the way across the midsection of Berks County, conveniently cutting out the city of Reading, which has about 88,000 citizens. That's an absurd gerrymander. So and you said that was Turzai who said that?
We think it was a completely partisan, ultimate gerrymander.
For that statement to be made with a straight face is absolutely ludicrous, that the new map is the ultimate partisan gerrymandering when you look at this monstrosity that was put through the legislature in 2011.
So the old map, stretched 120 miles from the PA-Ohio border into the Laurel Highlands of Pennsylvania. It covered 6 counties, okay, 5 of which were split in some way. The new map is one geographically condensed area, which is southwestern Pennsylvania. It comprises of 4 counties, and it only splits 1 out of those 4 counties.
It's terrific. It's a wonderful map. It meets all this criteria. It's not just their job to have the certain number of people. It's to have fair and equal treatment, a fair vote, and to have compact and contiguous district. It's right in the Constitution.
Pennsylvania's newly redrawn 2018 congressional map, the result of the League of Women Voters PA lawsuit, is objectively better than the 2011 map drawn by the Republican majority. The old map splits 28 counties and 68 municipalities. The new map splits 13 counties and only 19 municipalities. The upshot? In the 2018 congressional election, Pennsylvania's delegation went from a gerrymandered 13-5 Republican-Democrat split to a 9-9 split, which mirrors the state's electorate. Make no mistake, this is a landmark case. It's the first time ever a Supreme Court, state or federal, has struck down a redistricting map on the grounds that general constitutional principles prohibit partisan gerrymandering. But as good as this ruling and the new map is, it's a limited victory. Pennsylvania's Senate and House legislative districts are as gerrymandered as ever. 2018 saw a record-breaking voter turnout, but 1/3 of voters did not have a choice for their state legislators. 1/3 of Pennsylvania House and Senate incumbents ran unopposed in the general election. Gerrymandering effectively insulates the people from their politicians, and politicians from the public. And if nothing changes, those same people will redraw congressional, Senate, and House district maps again in 2021. Change is not easy, and there are no simple answers. But representative democracy really is at stake, and you either believe in it or you don't.
Do you solemnly swear that you will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of this Commonwealth? If so, say, I do.
A lot of times when I've talked to people about changing the Constitution, I've said the Constitution is not the problem. It's people raising their hand like we do, swear to uphold and defend it, and then they don't. They're the problem. It's people raising their hand like we do, swear to uphold and defend it, and then they don't. They're the problem.
Every state constitution in the country says the same three things. You have a right to vote. You have a right to free and fair elections. You have a right to equal protection of the law. Gerrymandering, by definition, violates every state constitution in the country. And every state legislator in the country swore to uphold that state constitution. I don't know what else to tell you.